So I'm going to try and continue the AI horror story. And I'd like to talk about a topic around AI regulation, which is deeply fascinating and, frightening to me, which is specifically criminal and malicious deepfakes, right? And as we know, we've just come out of a bio-pandemic, and I believe we are facing the equivalent of a e-pandemic, with the criminal and malicious deepfakes, right? And actually about 5-7 years back, a lot of scientists had said that, in the future, at least 2/3 of the data on the internet will be inaccurate, right? So this prediction is kind of coming today. And fast forward today, what some people are calling the Oppenheimer, moment today, right? With deepfakes, which is, the equivalent of a WMD, but not just with certain state actors, but at population scale, right? And, with deepfakes, today, if you really simplify, fact and fiction are basically becoming indistinguishable. And that should really scare us, right? And it has the potential to change our lives, society, the course of nations. I mean, think about Brexit, right? The US elections, right? What happened there? And I believe we may be looking at a zero trust society if we don't, regulate specifically that segment. And while I have an opinion as a technologist, how we can solve it, I want to pose more questions. So number one, how do we detect something is deepfake in the first place? Synthetically generated image, text, video, voice. How do we assume everything is fake and work backwards? Do we do that? What about the complex context of India and civil society here, right? And who decides what is synthetic and what is malicious? Those are two different questions, right? Need to be answered. And those are very important decision points. Is it going to be human? Is it going to be a machine, like a fact checker? Or is it going to be a combination? What will be its biases, right? And when you put that in the context of politics, the elections are coming, right? The big one next year, right? Or even worse, terrorism. And what about the threat from across the border, on both sides, right? And I believe this is going to be the new weapon of choice for, smokeless wars in the future, right? So how do we effectively and in a timely manner blunt any, for example, communal riots in India, due to religious and, caste sensitivities, right? In rural India, I mean, there is very little access to technology there. And, is that going to be a fact check service? Is it going to be a, someone in the panchayat, right? And how, we are starting with the assumption that, seeing is not believing. And what does that do to our courts? Today, CCTV coverage is a very important aspect of evidence, right? So even true videos, right? Do they slow down the process of the courts, right? Now let's get into, how the legal framework works, Is it going to be reported like cybercrime today? Does it need different treatment? Beyond the legal framework, and I'll just wrap up here. How will we evolve the legal framework? Will it require a change in the constitution itself? And how will law enforcement deal with it, right? At a state level, at a, district level, right? And who's going to educate the police workforce there, right? And by the way, how will this play out cross-border? The thing with the internet is it's borderless, right? And a lot of the originators of these malicious and criminal deepfakes will be across the border. The transmitters, as we know, a lot of social media, right? How are we going to regulate them, right? And what guardrails do they need to put in the first place, to try and prevent some of this? Are they incentivized to put these guardrails? Like if I'm running a social network, I don't want to make it less viral, right? And how will we enforce that? So since we lack the deep technological know-how in our country, and I've been a technologist for 30 years, right? I mean, will we build our own sovereign technology to deal with this, or will we depend on the West, right? So in conclusion, like the typical tsunami, I think it is about to hit our shores. We just cannot see it, and we just need to be, very wise about it. Thank you.